This is Tony. Tony is not a scientist. Tony is not a superhero. Tony is not the chosen one. Tony is just a guy who sees a cliff, a danger sign, and an electric grid below, and somehow thinks, this would be a great place for a selfie. The cliff is outside town. It has warning signs everywhere. Do not enter. High voltage. Danger of death. Tony reads all of them, then climbs over the fence anyway, because Tony's brain has two modes, hungry and bad idea. He walks to the edge of the cliff. Below him, a giant electric substation hums like a sleeping monster. Metal towers, thick wires, blue warning lights. A storm is rolling in. The sky flashes. Tony pulls out his phone. He stretches his arm out, makes a serious face, and says, "Legendary." Then his foot slips. For 1 second, Tony becomes the most focused man in human history. He grabs at the air. He drops his phone. He screams. Then he tumbles down the cliff, through dirt, through bushes, over rocks, straight toward the electric grid. And then, boom, white light fills everything. Tony hears a sound like the sky breaking in half. Then, nothing. No thunder, no wind, no birds, no cars, just silence. Tony opens his eyes. He is lying on the ground. His shirt is smoking. His hair smells burned. And somehow, he is alive. Tony sits up slowly. "Okay," he whispers. That was probably not good. Then he sees it. A raindrop, floating in front of his face. Not falling, not moving, just hanging there. Tony stares at it. He waves his hand through it. The raindrop breaks into smaller drops, and then freezes again. Tony stands up. He looks around. More raindrops are frozen in the air. A bird is frozen above the road. A car is frozen halfway through a puddle. The splash is hanging in the air like glass. Tony walks closer. Inside the car, a woman is frozen with one hand on the wheel. Her coffee is spilling, but the coffee is frozen too. Tony taps on the window. "Hello?" Nothing. He taps again. Nothing. Tony laughs nervously. This is fine. It is not fine. Tony runs toward town. At first, he thinks maybe only this road is affected. Maybe the electric grid did something weird nearby. Maybe he is dreaming. Maybe he has a concussion. Honestly, a concussion would make more sense. But when Tony reaches the city, he sees the truth. Everything has stopped. People are frozen on sidewalks. Dogs are frozen mid-bark. A cyclist is frozen in the air, halfway over his handlebars. A bus is frozen in the middle of an intersection. The driver's mouth is open like he is shouting. Tony walks past a restaurant. Inside, a waiter is frozen while dropping a tray. Soup floats in the air. Plates hang sideways. A man at one table is frozen mid-laugh. Tony looks up at the sky. The clouds are not moving. The sun is not moving. Even the shadows are stuck. That is when Tony understands. This is not just the city. This is time. Time has stopped, and Tony is the only person still moving. For the first few hours, Tony panics. He shouts. He waves his arms. He runs into stores. He tries phones. He tries computers. He tries turning on the news. Nothing works. No internet, no signal, no sound except his own footsteps. Then Tony does what any normal person would do after discovering he is alone in frozen time. He goes to a convenience store and steals chips. He walks past the frozen cashier and says, "I'll pay you later." Then he grabs soda, candy, a sandwich, 3 bags of chips, and 1 lottery ticket, because apparently even during the end of time, Tony still believes in luck. By the end of day 1, Tony is sitting in the middle of the street. Cars frozen around him, people frozen around him, food wrappers beside him. He tries to enjoy it. He really does. But the silence is too big. The world is full of people, and somehow Tony has never felt more alone. Then he heard something. A crackle, tiny, far away, like electricity. Tony turns his head. The sound is coming from the direction of the cliff.
The next morning, if it even is morning, Tony goes back to where it started. The electric grid is still glowing. Blue sparks hang in the air like frozen fireflies. His phone is lying near the fence. Cracked, burned, but somehow still on. Tony picks it up. The screen shows the selfie he took before falling. His terrified face, the lightning behind him, and around his body, a bright white ring. Tony looks at the photo, then at the electric grid, then back at the photo. "Oh no," he says, "I broke time." This is not science. This is Tony science. But it is the only explanation he has. So Tony creates a plan. If the electric grid broke time, maybe the electric grid can fix time. This is Tony's second terrible idea. He enters the control room. There are buttons everywhere, switches, warning lights, manuals with words Tony does not understand. He finds one giant red lever. Tony stares at it, then says, "Well, this looks important." He pulls it. Nothing happens. He presses a yellow button. Nothing happens. He kicks a metal box. Something happens. Blue electricity shoots across the frozen wires. The air shakes. For 1 second, the raindrops move. Just 1 second. Then everything freezes again. Tony's eyes widen. It worked. Then the whole substation begins to hum. Not like a machine, like something waking up. And suddenly, Tony is not sure he is alone anymore. By day 3, Tony starts exploring the frozen city. At first, he tries to have fun. He goes to the mall. He rides a scooter through a clothing store. He puts on sunglasses, a gold chain, a cowboy hat. He stands in front of a mirror and says, "Last man on earth." But the joke dies fast, because nobody laughs. Nobody reacts. Nobody even blinks. Tony walks into the food court. A mother is frozen while feeding her child. A group of teenagers are frozen laughing. An old man is frozen with noodles halfway to his mouth. Tony sits alone at a table. He takes a bite of pizza. And for the first time, he cries. Because having the whole world to yourself sounds fun, until you realize there is nobody left to share it with. That night, Tony sleeps inside a furniture store, on the biggest bed he can find. He tells himself tomorrow he will fix everything. But when he wakes up, the sun is still in the same place, and the buzzing sound is louder. On day 4, Tony notices something strange. The frozen world is changing. Not much, just tiny things. Street lights flicker even when he does not touch them. Frozen radios make static. Electric signs flash random words. At one subway entrance, the lights blink on and off. Tony sees it from across the street. He should walk away. He absolutely should walk away. So of course, Tony goes inside. The subway is dark. A train is frozen on the tracks. People are frozen inside it. One man is frozen holding a newspaper. A woman is frozen looking at her phone. Tony walks through the tunnel with a flashlight. Then he hears the crackle again. Closer this time. At the end of the tunnel, blue sparks crawl along the tracks. They are moving. Not frozen. Moving. Tony kneels down. The sparks form a circle. Then a line. Then something almost like a hand. Tony falls backward. Nope. The sparks vanish. Then every light in the tunnel turns on at once. Tony screams. Behind him, the frozen train doors slowly open. Tony runs. He runs harder than he has ever run in his life. He does not look back. When he reaches the street, he is shaking. Now he knows the truth. Something inside the electricity is still alive, and it knows Tony is there. By day 5, Tony stops joking. He starts leaving messages around the city. On walls. On buses. On car windows. Day 5. Time is frozen. Probably my fault. Sorry. Then he goes to the hospital. Maybe there is equipment there. Maybe there are answers. Maybe someone was studying something before time stopped. Inside, doctors are frozen in hallways. Patients are frozen in beds. A surgeon is frozen mid-operation.
Tony looks into the operating room and immediately backs out. Nope, not qualified. Eventually, Tony finds a monitor displaying a strange wave pattern. It looks like the white ring from his phone photo. A pulse. An electric pulse. Tony does not understand the science, but he understands one thing. The accident created a shock wave, a pulse big enough to freeze time. So to restart time, he needs another pulse, a bigger one. There is only one place with enough power, the main power plant outside the city. On day 6, Tony reaches it. The place is enormous. Metal towers rise into the frozen sky. Thick cables run across the ground. Inside the control room, workers are frozen at their stations. Warnings cover every wall. Tony sees one panel labeled Grid Synchronization. He has no idea what that means. But synchronization sounds time-related, so Tony decides this is definitely the answer. He pulls switches, connects cables, resets breakers. Every few minutes, sparks jump from the walls. The whole building starts to vibrate. Outside, across the city, lights flicker. Cars twitch. Bird wings jerk. A frozen man blinks halfway, then freezes again. Tony steps back. Oh no. He has not fixed time. He has made it unstable. The sky flashes. Clouds move forward, then backward. Clocks spin in different directions. Some people flicker for half a second and vanish before returning. The world is starting to break. A warning light flashes. Overload. Then another.
Cascade failure. Then one more. Evacuate immediately. Tony looks around. Great. Even the building wants me to leave. But he cannot leave, because if he runs now, maybe time never comes back. So Tony goes into the main transformer room. Electricity crawls across every wall. Blue sparks gather in the center. The same sparks from the subway. This time they form a shape. Not a monster, not a ghost. A person. Tony steps closer. The electric shape steps closer too. Tony freezes, because the shape looks like him. It is Tony, or something that came from Tony. The accident did not just freeze time. It split him between 1 second and the next. Part of Tony is here. Part of Tony is trapped inside the electricity. And now both parts are pulling the world apart. At the far end of the room, Tony sees one final emergency switch, covered in blue sparks. The whole plant shakes. The city outside begins to scream back to life in broken pieces. Car horns start and stop. Voices appear for half a second. Rain falls, freezes, and falls again. Tony knows this is his last chance. He runs. Electricity burns around him. The air turns white. The electric version of Tony reaches for him. Tony grabs the switch. For 1 second, he hesitates. If this works, the world might come back, but maybe Tony will not. He thinks about the mother in the food court, the cashier in the store, the people on the bus, the frozen city waiting to breathe again. Tony closes his eyes and pulls the switch. The world explodes. Every raindrop falls at once. Every sound returns at once. Every car horn, every voice, every footstep, every heartbeat. Tony screams. White light swallows him. And then he wakes up. Tony is in a hospital bed. Machines beat beside him. His body hurts everywhere. His mom is crying next to him. A doctor rushes in. He's awake. Tony tries to move. He can barely speak. How long? He whispers. His mom squeezes his hand. How long what? Tony swallows. How long was I gone? The doctor looks at the chart, then says, about 7 minutes. Tony stares at him. 7 minutes. Not 7 days. 7 minutes. The cliff. The frozen city. The subway sparks. The power plant. None of it was real. It was a dream. A nightmare inside Tony's head after the accident. His brain created an entire week, inside 7 unconscious minutes. Tony lets out a weak laugh. Then he turns his head. On the table beside him is his cracked phone. Burned. Dead. The nurse notices him looking at it. We found that near you, she says.
Completely fried. It doesn't even turn on. Tony stares at the phone. Then the screen flickers. Just once. For half a second, the selfie appears. Tony on the cliff. Lightning behind him. His face full of panic. And around his body, a bright white ring. Then the screen goes black. Tony's smile disappears. Nobody else saw it. Not the doctor. Not the nurse. Not his mom. Only Tony. Then, for one tiny moment, the heart monitor stops beeping. The room goes silent. The doctor freezes mid-step. The nurse freezes mid-breath. A tear hangs in the air on his mom's cheek. Tony's eyes widen. Then, beep. Everything moves again. The nurse turns around. Are you okay? Tony stares at the ceiling. He thinks about the frozen city. The silent world. The 7 days nobody else remembers. Then he whispers, I am never taking selfies again. Maybe Tony dreamed it. Maybe his brain invented the whole thing. Or maybe time really did freeze. Maybe Tony fixed it. Maybe nobody noticed because, to everyone else, it lasted less than a blink. But Tony remembers. The frozen rain. The empty streets. The electric copy of himself. And the terrifying truth. Time is the one thing we all trust. It keeps moving. It never stops. But what if one day, because of one stupid accident, time stopped trusting us back? And what if the only person left moving was Tony.